Okay, okay, we're on. You're on, Anna.
All right.
Take it away, girl.
See here. April 13th, 2021. It's my birthday. I'm officially 4 decades old. I can't believe it.
Woo, happy birthday.
Pretty
you have
good.
new glasses, don't you?
Yep, new glasses. Oh,
They
big
look
on
great.
Yeah.
They look great. Yeah.
Better than my backup glasses that were 5 years old. So different style back then. But it's been a good week for me. Last week I went to Richmond, Virginia, and I was able to have a store in Richmond pick up my yard line as well. And then I went to Charlottesville, Virginia, Charlottesville. I always get those mixed up.
It is Charlottesville.
You said Charlottesville
okay.
last
Yeah.
when we were
So
talking.
a little bird told me in the car to check, see how far away Charlottesville was. And I said, oh, it's only an hour or so. I put that there. No big deal. I didn't have anything else to do. And there was a place called Magpie Knits. So I thought it was kind of funny because, you know, something told me in the back. So Magpie Knits doesn't have any Virginia dyers. So, and she said that morning they were talking about it, and here I go. There I am. So I am her exclusive Virginia dyer. So, which is really cool. It's really
awesome.
cool. Yeah, it's a big
Very
deal.
nice. Congratulations.
So I'm in
Awesome.
five yarn stores, and next week I'm gonna go down to Raleigh and see a couple yarn stores down there. So taking over one state at a time.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Got to make money.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's doing good. And I just signed up for a trunk show, which means that I bring my yarn to their store. They display everything for me, and she's going to have it there for over a week. So that's a pretty big deal as well. So that's going to be some good income. So
Wow.
Chuck, yeah,
That's great. Yeah.
so,
Great.
Chuck,
Yeah.
how was your week?
Well, you know, as you know, our human rights pocketbook ventures, a way of engaging our own centers of influence about building the caring society. You know, where caring citizens exercise empathy for and responsibility to their neighbors to protect their human rights. So I've been asking people I know what teachers or parents of children in kindergarten, 3rd, 6th, 9th, 12th grades, who do they know who might appreciate receiving complimentary copies of the illustrated UDHR? And I tell them we've got, you know, donors that allow us to give away 30, 40 complimentary pocketbooks every month. And right now I've got 70 pocketbooks on hand.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, that I need to unload, and all I need is a name, mailing address, email, cell phone.
Sure.
I can send them a couple of complimentary copies, you know, in their names, which includes you guys, you know, and once I've done that, then both they and I can follow up, see how we can distribute pocketbooks to their local classes.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, so if you've got people you want them to get pocketbooks, you know, it'd be nice if I had a couple of referrals a week, and you know, that'd be we'd probably unload a lot of pocketbooks that way. Anyway, I need your help. But I've been getting some responses, not as many as I'd like, but anyway, that's what I've been doing this week.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Anita?
Me? It's been a horrible. It's been too exciting. On the good thing is, I had invited the owner of Yellow Springs Solar down here to look at what I had developed, because I told him I was trying to develop a community center to talk about human rights and to, you know, spread the word and do all that. And that, but what I really wanted to do was to partner with a solar company and be their demonstration farm for clean energy. And he met Dale, he met Wisdom, we sat, we talked. I showed him everything that we had, what we'd been doing with the foundation and blah, blah, blah. And so he left, and then he texted me and he said, yeah, I hope we can work together. And I said, yeah, I sure do too. And then last Thursday, I told Chuck this, but Greg, last Thursday, I got a text from him. He said he just won a bid on over 60 solar projects in the Cincinnati area, and would we be his project managers?
Whoa.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
And
That's
so
pretty awesome,
I
yeah.
vacillate from this feeling of, oh, I can do that, to what the hell am I going to do? But Wisdom, see, is getting a master's in project management. And he talked to Wisdom, and so he wants us, he likes our vibe, he likes everything that we stand for. So, and he's talking to the program administrators right now, the man is, to find out, to get some specifics so we can move forward. So I don't know, I mean, this is the smallest thing. If he says it's over 60 projects, I'm thinking like maybe it's like a neighborhood for distributed energy plugged into the
Right.
grid, but
Right.
I know nothing. So,
Yeah, cool.
so we've got that. Then on the bad side, our new baby has got an infection at his navel cord,
Mm.
and everybody is off at the emergency room for that.
Wow, man,
And
man, oh man, yeah.
so that's it. That's it. How about you, Greg? What have you been doing?
Okay, so I'm trying to catch up because I was off work Friday and Monday. I just got an issue with somebody who needs FMLA, and so I'm just trying to catch up at work. But
Yeah.
Chuck reminded me that I'm always thinking. So I have these little plans in my head, and this fall, I plan on starting with the Human Rights Pocketbook project. I'm targeting my my son's elementary school because I know the principal, and I'm going to target his high school that he's in right now. So that's
Cool.
the plans that I have in my head right now.
Cool.
Yeah.
So other than that, it's just me catching up from being on vacation for 2 days. So I have a lot of work to catch up on.
You need to rest, but then it piles
I
up.
know.
Yeah.
Then the work doubles when I come back.
Yeah, I know. That's not good. So back to you, Anna Banana.
Now what?
So
My
just,
brain went froggy.
did you
Sorry
by
about
any
that.
chance have a chance to reschedule our congressional governing board for this Thursday? You know,
No, I was not able to. I was supposed to reach out to Kathleen last night and I have forgotten. It slipped my mind. But
So,
what you said, you said
so-
to send her an
So
email.
if we kept it on Thursdays, if we did that, 7 is good for me. What about you, Greg?
I'm looking at my calendar real quick.
I prefer Wednesday.
Thursdays at 7.
Anna, you'd rather
Thursdays
have
at
a
7.
Wednesday? Anna, you'd rather have a Wednesday? That's fine with me as well.
Yeah, I would rather do Wednesday at 7 versus Thursday. That's ladies' night. That's my girlfriend
Ladies'
where I
night.
completely
Right,
unwind.
right.
We don't want to interfere with ladies' night. that's
I
for
know.
sure.
We'll lose. Right.
That's
Night
right.
That's right.
movies.
Right. Wednesday is
Yeah,
better
7
for me too.
7 at Wednesday is
much
fine for
better
me too.
Okay.
Much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So while we're doing our thing, I'll reach out to Miriam and Kathleen, see if they see my text. Mary Beth is still trying to get in, so anyway, it's just an update, Anna. Thank you.
Sorry, got lost in emails.
So I found
Um,
this this new chapter pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, where, what?
It's chapter 7, God Bless America.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Anita, are
I'm
you
a
ready?
secular humanist and this just killed me. I mean, the closest
so-
I can get to this is like Joel Olstein's book, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Bible, the funny book about the Bible.
Anita, you and I are in the same space, so no worries.
Yeah, okay, good, yeah.
So maybe I ought to go first, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
you probably should go first, Chuck.
Glenn,
Somebody that knows what they're talking about, talk about.
Yeah, right.
This
So
is
my word or phrase is God exists in metaphor. So Anna, how about you? What was your word or phrase?
I don't really have a word or phrase yet. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read very well into the.
Maybe Anita has a
Right, I would
word,
say,
secular humanist phrase.
well, I would say that the concept of God, any God, is abstract.
Okay, it's all yours, Greg.
My phrase is metaphors are double-edged swords.
Okay. So God exists in metaphor. See, I better get my timer up here. Hold on a second.
Give me 20 seconds.
Get my timer up here. So, okay, I'm ready. So God exists in metaphor, and God as Father is the metaphor that religions use. That political and moral truth is laid out in chapter 7.1 of Doctors George Lakoff and Elizabeth Whaling's Your Brain's Politics, Metaphors for God, our Father. And, writes Lakoff, our religiously motivated actions in everyday life, as well as in politics, will be in line with this reasoning. So if we reason about God as a parental figure, then the interesting question becomes, what type of parent is he? In fact, our framers, Creator God, cared for all of our lives, liberty, safety, happiness, cared for all of us equally. And that God expected people to build democracy's infrastructure on these aforementioned principles. God exists in metaphor. In addition, all protection and empowerment policies are moral policies based on human welfare and humanity's consent. And all policies are based on two components, material and cognitive/moral components. So if we argue for a particular material policy, we should be ready to proclaim the duty to care as the cognitive moral reason behind the policy. And on one hand, if one is religious, one could swear on a Bible or a Quran to uphold the Constitution. And on the other hand, if one is not religious, one could swear on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to uphold the Constitution. Nevertheless, whatever policy we promote, we must be able to morally defend its foundation of care for all. God exists in metaphor. Moreover, God's golden rule translates her expectation of us to care for each other through our mutual political infrastructure. That caring political infrastructure is under attack by enemies of care. That godless attack on democracy began in 2015, was intensified on January 6th, and continues perpetuated by extreme conservative big lie that our electoral infrastructure failed and must be dismantled. Our caring political infrastructure must be protected, strengthened, and expanded by the current infrastructure bill now under consideration by Congress. To care for our nation, we must invest at least $1 trillion per year for at least 10 years in caring infrastructure that includes protecting the right to vote. That's me.
Nice.
Very nice.
Okay, Anna, it's all yours.
You're so hard to follow, though.
Yes.
Gosh, I feel so silly not having something written out like that.
You can do that
You're
next
supposed
week.
to be prepared, Anna.
Uh,
You can
But I
start.
have
You can start next week.
birthday.
Yeah.
All right, all right. You start next week since it was your birthday.
all right, get a week off. Let's see here. Yeah.
Do you want to pass, Anna?
Yeah, let me pass because I really
Okay.
don't really know what to say, honestly.
Okay. That's okay. That's okay. No,
Yeah,
I'll go. I'll go.
thank you.
You're welcome. So, metaphors are double-edged swords. Once again, I find myself in a space where I am not sure that I will offend someone. My goal is to never offend. My goal is to share my perspective in order to increase our understanding of who I am and who we are together. I'm not by any stretch of the imagination trying to change anyone's perspective. Dr. Lakoff talks about metaphors from a religious perspective. He also mentions that all of the Abrahamic religions utilize the same mental mappings as it relates to God as the Father, which is a metaphor about God. Dr. Lakoff mentions other metaphors about God, but the one that I personally cannot or will not tolerate is God as master. So I do not need to go into the historical precedence that makes this phrase, God as master, so distasteful to me personally. This is the very reason why I consider metaphors double-edged swords. The double-edged sword is a metaphor in and of itself, but I digress. Allow me to explain why God as master is a distasteful metaphor. There are tomes of evidence that show how between 1619 and 1800 and beyond, the Bible has been used to justify slavery in the American colonies and eventually the United States. For example, 1 Peter 2:18, slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. 1 Timothy 6:1, all who are under the yoke of slavery should consider their masters worthy of full respect so that God's name and our teaching may not be slandered. Galatians 3:2, slaves obey your earthly masters in everything and do it not only when their eye is on you and to curry their favor, but with sincerity of heart and reverence to the Lord. The double-edged sword comes from the way different people interpret the metaphor, as Dr. Lakoff mentions. Frederick Douglass illustrates the double-edged sword of the metaphor of religion extremely well when he said, between the Christianity of this land and the Christianity of Christ, I recognize the widest possible difference, so wide that to receive the one as good, pure, and holy is of necessity to reject the other as bad, corrupt, and wicked. To be the friend of the one is of necessity to be the enemy of the other. I love the pure, peaceable, and impartial Christianity of Christ. I therefore hate the corrupt, slave-holding, women-whipping, cradle-plundering, partial, and hypocritical Christianity of this land. Indeed, I can see no reason but the most deceitful one for calling the religion of this land Christianity. It is the double-edged sword of metaphors that makes it of utmost importance that regardless of what anyone says about our perspective, we must continue to frame our metaphors in a way that will lend itself to the progressive perspective and lead to a government of, for, and by the people. It is our sacred duty to become stronger citizens and advocate for progressive policies that benefit everyone. Thank you.
Amen. Hallelujah.
God, oh, that was beautiful.
Do you teach classes? I can add you to my college course.
That was
That
beautiful.
was beautiful.
I,
Yeah.
I actually,
No.
thank you. I actually stopped teaching a while ago, actually.
Oh.
You're familiar with John Carroll?
No.
Oh,
Okay, John Carroll
John
is up
Carroll
my
High
way,
School?
so. No, John Carroll University.
Right. Oh, okay. But we have a Carroll High School.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
John Carroll, I was going to teach there until before I took the job that I have now, and I taught at University of Phoenix as well. But I stopped teaching for a while because
Oh,
it's just they make it very difficult for instructors to teach, to be honest. The bureaucracy of it. So
They want you to work for nothing.
Yeah.
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
What about you, Anita?
Well,
Any thoughts on human secularism?
well, I tell you, I saw the most amazing explanation about the God equation, what the physicists are looking for in the God equation. And the closest that they come to now is string theory. And the physicists say that we look at the universe and what's in it with the dark energy and everything. Think of it in terms of music. Think of it in terms of music. That they used to think that if you had a microscope strong enough that you could look down to an electron, you would see one little dot in an area. But now with string theory, they say you'll see like a rubber band. And if you stretch it a little bit, it'll be a neutrino. And if you stretch it more, it can turn into a quark. And there's like over 100 of these subparticles. So depending on how the energy is stretched, depends on what the actual substance is. And so if I can get this right, so like music, so they call it the music of tiny particles. And okay, so what they say is in physics is the harmony of life and chemistry is the melody. And that the universe is a symphony of strings and it's God's mind creating this cosmic music resonating through hyperspace. And I thought, oh, I could buy into that one. You know, that I like. You know, looking at it through, you know, the music, you know, and the vibrations and all of that. But you'll have to time me because anyway, I wanted to talk about this thing last week when we saw George Lakoff. Before then, I had done on Prime Video a search and I just put in his name, George Lakoff, and a movie came up called The Brave Class. And this was a group of people in Spain and France who came together and they were trying to form a new movement. And so they were looking for the right metaphors and they were looking for the right, we'll say metaphors. So, but what I found out from this movie is, because this is not what we say, okay, but in this European dissertation, a statement was made that what the right does, and their right is like ours, alternative right, and you know, okay, is by using their storytelling that it appeals to their people's sense of empathy. And I thought, what? And so I watched this over and over again. They evoke feelings of anger and envy against the left. The left has to get the right on the defensive. The right uses the politics of envy to get people who are struggling to envy each other rather than being angry at the powerful. So what does the right say to a low-paid worker whose wages were cut by their employer when their in-work benefits are being cut by the government? He says, don't be angry at your boss. Don't be angry with the government. Instead, envy that unemployed person that's living in luxury down the street. And it works and they get away with it. So then I was reading this other book by a guy named Christian Salmon from Paris. He wrote a book called Storytelling, Bewitching the Modern Mind. And he states that politics is no longer the story of the possible, but of the fictive. Its aim is not to change the world as it exists, but to affect the way it is perceived. Anyway, so on a personal note, that reminded me of a friend of mine coined this term, affective parking lot disorder. That feeling where you're in your car and the car next to you moves and all of a sudden you're stopped, but you hit the brake anyway because you think you're sliding backwards. That feel, we all have that. It does not have a name. So my friend calls it affective parking lot disorder. But anyway, I asked my nephew, who is an airline pilot, or was till he retired, if he ever had that sensation in a plane, and he said all the time when they're moving their planes around on the ground, positioning to get in and out. That is a common complaint. And I thought, ooh, I don't like that. That's kind of scary. So anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. But anyway, it still bothers me that they say that they're in Spain and France, so in Europe, that the right uses empathy to get their way, that the left is not doing that over there. They are not focused on that. The left uses statistics and facts, and they're not appealing to people's feelings like the right does.
That's what we're doing. That too.
Yes,
that
exactly.
in the United States, the
Right.
extreme conservatives do a much better job at we talk about limited empathy, which is what they do.
Right.
Limited government equals limited empathy, but they're really good at focusing what empathy they have upon themselves.
Right.
And so what Lakoff is always talking about, the whole point of that Thanksgiving question, you go home and you've got conservatives around the table, what is it that you do that helps the most people? Because everybody, it doesn't matter who everybody has a story.
Right.
Everybody has a story of how they helped people, and the challenge that we have, which we're not doing a very good job at, is how do we harness, how do we talk about that empathy for everybody, not just, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah.
So there's a thought exercise that I often use with people to try to get them to move towards empathy. So the thought exercise is, imagine that you could live in a utopia. There would be no aging, no sickness, no hate, none of the isms that we have today. It would just be a pure utopia. But in order to achieve that utopia, one 9-year-old little girl has to suffer horrifically beyond anything that you imagine. And she won't die, she will just suffer. And her suffering will create this utopia. Would you allow that girl to suffer? A lot of conservatives say yes, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And I go, okay, that's great. It's your daughter. Now how do you feel about it?
Right.
The vast majority of people often retract their statements. They go, okay, well, now that changes. Like, why does it change? Why does it change your answer? Because it's your daughter. Before you said it's okay. And then I would say, so you need to put yourself in the shoes of the parents that are allowing that child to suffer.
Oh, good point.
So-
Yeah.
So another thing is, that Lakoff is always talking about. I mean, the left or the progressives have a hard time at framing reality, I should say, framing our reality, which is how we perceive reality.
Right.
We hand out facts, thinking that facts, are self-evident,
Convincing,
but
right?
but they're not self-evident, and so
Right.
that thing that you read affect as it is perceived. I mean, that's the whole point anyway. It's the perceptions that we are working on. It's the cognitive that we're working on, which has nothing to do with reality at all.
Right.
It's
how we perceive reality.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well,
and we've already discovered back in chapter 5 or 6 is, every one of us have a different perception of reality. We have a different experience, and so we reason differently. So part of the reason I gave testimony the way I did today was, Lakoff a couple of chapters ago said, if I present a political, or doesn't even have to be, a governing political position, it can be any position, any policy position, whether it's in business or civil society or government, I owe you a moral reason behind that policy. Because policy is material and cognitive. So I give you a policy, and an okay question is, why did you do this? Why is this your policy? And conservatives are really good at saying, God told me it's the right policy. I mean, that is their morality. Well, how do you argue with that? Well, the God I believe in, has this different policy. I have a moral policy as well. I have a moral stance as well. And if I believed in your God, I'd be at your church or your mosque or your synagogue, but I don't believe that. And, according to our framers' understanding of deity, we ought to be working together.
Right.
We ought to be working together because their understanding of deity had us working together, so that we could empower and protect each other. That's the framers' understanding of God. And we need to get all of our understandings of God under that framework. And that framework is empathy.
Yes.
So also from this European thing, I learned about the Overton window. I'd never heard that expression before. Is that used?
I've never heard of it.
You never heard of the Overton? Okay.
No.
Tell us again. I've heard of it, and it's important, but tell us again.
Okay, so we frame. We frame. Okay, so in the middle of this frame, chicken soup is good. Okay, I mean, this is my example. Out here, poison food is bad. Well, I don't know. Okay, so say, we're framing.
Beef soup is bad. Chicken soup is good.
Chicken, there you go. Right in the middle is the common, what everybody takes as common sense, common knowledge, blah, blah, blah. So, like how you, if you want to change something dramatic, new in society, at first they laugh at you, then second they fight you to the death, and then third they accept it as common sense. Okay, so right in the middle of the Overton window is common sense. This is what everybody accepts, right in the middle. So if we're left, we're not in the mainstream frame. If you're talking to Republicans, we're fringe. So our job is to move into the frame so that people will accept what we say as common knowledge. Once we get inside the Overton frame, it's accepted as common knowledge. So, but I just right before the meeting said, or found this quote: the most common misconception is that lawmakers themselves are in the business of shifting the Overton window. But that is absolutely false. Lawmakers are actually in the business of detecting where the window is and then moving into it to be in accordance with it. And I thought, oh, that's pretty dramatic,
So,
you know?
so that is totally opposite of what Lakoff is saying.
Isn't that crazy?
So Lakoff is not, he is not affirming the Overton window whatsoever.
Okay,
If that's the way the Overton window is defined.
my point is, this is the politics now of Europe. In France and Spain, this was the new young group, and everything that I said today is basically how they're working, how they're trying to change things for the better. And they're not conservative. They're not the alt-right. They are democratic socialists and whatever.
So
But
Elizabeth Whaling would be talking to them.
okay.
Elizabeth Whaling is I mean, she has a think tank, et cetera, et cetera.
And she's I thought she was in California.
She's in Germany.
Oh, she's in Germany.
She's in Germany. She's a German.
Oh,
She's in Germany, and she's having this conversation with Europeans.
okay.
And when you listen to her TED Talks, she's talking the talk. That's why she and George are co-authoring all these books. But I don't, like I said, I've heard of the Overton window. I'm not sure necessarily how it works, but
Yeah.
but what Lakoff is saying, it is that, if you move to the, if number one, we should never refer to ourselves as the left or the left,
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
because
Yeah.
it does exactly what you say it does. It says that we're not a part of the frame, as if the frame is something, something that we haven't created.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but we are framing around the duty of care.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Our
And
frame, our frame is the constitutional duty to care, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that the people have a moral obligation to create, to establish. The people, those, who must consent to be governed, they're the ones that have created this moral infrastructure of democracy. That is the duty to care. And so that is our frame. And so what he's always complaining about is that we're never talking about the frame, and the frame is democracy. Democracy is the frame. Democracy is the infrastructure. And democracy can't exist without care, unless we're caring for one another, finding way, collaborating, not compromising, but collaborating with one another to care for each other. Democracy can't exist. So that's the frame, and we're not left. We shouldn't talk about ourselves in terms of geography. We should talk about ourselves in terms of our moral values.
Yes.
We're
Yes.
either empathic, we either have this duty to care, or we don't care. And that's where we find ourselves, isn't it?
Okay. Let let me say this. Okay, when you say the duty to care, yes, of course. But that phrase, the duty to, do you know where that originated from? Does that have an origination point, that the duty to? Because the way I ask is, back 21 years ago, when first time I became a telephone triage nurse, I was instructed that I had the duty to terrorize. I thought, what? And their explanation was, if I triage someone and they need to be calling 911, or they need to be in the emergency room within 2 hours, and they say they're not going, I am responsible. I have the duty to threaten, to terrorize them into going. Now, so when you remind me about the duty to care too. And so I've had this thing in the back of my head all these 21 years about this, the duty to terrorize. Now, somebody made that an official statement.
Yes.
And, that's an official.
Anita,
So
can I address that?
Article 29 just simply says everyone has duties to the community.
Right.
Okay.
So Anita, so
Yeah.
certain vocations have a higher level of responsibility, and that's why sometimes these vocations advocate a duty to do something.
Okay.
So a police officer has the duty to serve and protect because of their vocation.
Yeah.
So because you were in that nursing vocation, I would have never worded it that way. I think that's a horrible way to word it.
Right.
But you do have a duty to act because you're a nurse.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So
Last
Friday, Rachel Maddow, I think it was last Friday, was talking about it. She had gotten her second COVID shot. And she said that she had been thinking about it. She had a picture of, she didn't get the picture of it sticking in her arm, but she had a picture of herself, after getting the shot. And you could tell she was weepy-eyed. And she talked about, she knew people in her progressive center, that people that her group, her peeps, that were still on the edge, still, haven't figured out whether or not they're going to get the shot or not. And she said, I totally get that. I totally understand. But from what I know of you, I think that you would feel horrible about yourself, that because of you not having a shot, you contract the disease, you don't die yourself, but you give it to somebody else who does. Because of you, someone has died because of you. So when are you going to get your shot for someone else? Because I know you don't want to be responsible for killing someone else just because you didn't get your shot.
Yeah.
Now that tells me that fits into this duty to care.
Right. And I know people who don't want to get the COVID immunization, but yet they're willing to they're willing to get the shots to go to South America for yellow fever and typhus and all of that horrible stuff.
They won't let you in the country. They won't let you in the country without it.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They'll do that so that they can go bird watching, in the Amazon, and they don't want to get the COVID, doesn't.
So
as a side note, in the chat, I put in a YouTube video about the Overton window. So just in case anybody's interested.
Great, good deal.
Go ahead, Chuck. I just went.
No, I was just, it must have not been anything because it just went out the window.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. That's okay. So I just think that that wrestling with this chapter is going to be good for us because we need to be. George's frustration is well founded. We're not good at talking about our, saying this is our moral reason for doing this. I recently shared I get all kinds, you probably do too. I get all kinds of emails from political leaders, wanting money, and and a few of them I know, and so so the few that I know, I quite often will forward their email that, of course, they didn't write, some communication director wrote. I'll write to them and I'll try to instill this, why don't you tell us what the why don't you tell us this fundamental thing that, I've been asking you to do? And usually it never gets responded to. Well, I got a response from somebody, and they actually copied their communications director. Now I replied, and hadn't replied back, but I got a response by saying, you've sent me this email, you've laid out this policy that I agree with, but you haven't told me anything about your personal morality, that is foundational to this policy. And they got indignant, and they replied with indignation, how can you say that? And of course I can say that if like Dr. George says, if you don't actually say
Right.
why this is important, you haven't told us your morality. You've given us your position, but you haven't said why.
Yeah.
And you've got to say why, because it's so important.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we get some more written statements.
Yeah, they're coming.
So am I. Chuck and I are hoping.
I was working on.
Chuck and I are hoping that everyone comes prepared for our next meeting, which means a written testimonial.
We now have a sergeant at arms.
Anita's hiding behind her napkin. Anita,
Good work.
If you don't come prepared next time, I'm going to call you personally.
All right.
After, so I'm not going to tell you when. I'm going to call you personally.
So once you call her 12 hours, 24 hours ahead of time, you just remind her.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, why weren't you ready? I have every faith in your ability to be ready.
Yes. I agree.
I'm going to call Anna. I'm going to call Anita. I'm going to say, why weren't you ready?
Yeah.
And
one thing we do have, though, is now that we're recording, is that we do have these really good insights. Because there's nothing to say. You've got this kernel that you've always had. It hadn't been too long where we started writing things down, trying to write things down, so we've got it. But you've got this kernel. So, my suggestion is, you've got this kernel, write that. We get off, flesh it out, and then work on the next one.
Will do.
And we've got these kernels recorded for posterity. The Overton window, we would have never known about the that concept, if you hadn't brought it up, or what
Right.
Europe and Spain has done, if you hadn't brought it up. I mean, you're doing the work, and you're applying the concepts, et cetera, and you're putting yourself out there. You're
Yeah.
doing it. You're just not writing it down.
Yeah, right.
You know,
In addition to that, put it in your folder in your drives. So I might want to go in your folder and read it again
Yeah.
so that I can retain some of that information. So you
Okay.
could go, you're more than welcome to go in my folder and read all of my testimonials. I go into Chuck's folders and read some of his sometimes.
All right.
Sounds so invasive.
so if we can,
It's not
and-
invasive. I'm welcoming you to do that. It's not invasive. It's only
I-
invasive if you do it and I go, why did you do that?
Because I care. I care.
It's not invasive. I want you to
No,
go
I-
in and read.
Just joking. Yeah. No, absolutely.
I know. I'm just messing with you too.
Just,
so if we ever get capacity, like more people help, maybe we can get a paid person to do stuff, and we have these things on file. You can go to, of course, ALEC, and you can get their musings. You can see their musings, on the latest. In fact, I haven't checked in lately, but a couple of months ago I checked in on some of their latest musings, and they were the talking points I was hearing, from conservative politicians on TV.
Yep.
They're taking their cues. So we want to get to the point where people are perusing our musings.
Yes.
cruising.
That's why we're recording it, perusing our music.
Okay.
Yes.
Instead about cruising. Okay.
Well,
Oh, man.
unfortunately, I have a work meeting to go to, so I have to drop off.
Okay.
So I apologize. So thank
See
you
you
very
later.
much.
See you next
I
week.
love these meetings. I love seeing you
We'll
guys.
see you
So see you
We'll
next
see you at
week.
7 at Thursday.
7
Wednesday.
o'clock.
7
Wednesday, yeah.
7 Wednesday. 7 Wednesday.
7 o'clock tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
7
Okay.
tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
See
All
you.
right, bye.
I didn't even put up our stuff, did I?
No.
So I messed up. Well,
We're
we'll
good.
we'll do it next week.
Yeah.
won't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I get.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Chuck.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Take care. See ya.
Thanks, Chuck.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye, baby.
Bye.